and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So we'll start then with our council activity reports. I'll go first. Policies and procedures met for a special meeting to interview a number of candidates for police officers. I think we interviewed 6. I was pleasantly surprised with the number that we had. They were of, first of all, it's a good number to have for applicants, and they were all of pretty good caliber. So we extended some informal offers to some of them, and hopefully we'll be seeing them for hires very soon. We also had our working session last week, which we were all present for, so I won't go over that. And before that working session, I had a meeting with Steve Lemkool of the township to go over some of the things that we've been working on, including contracts and things of that nature. So that's what I have. Turn to the end, Mr. Hertzberg.
I was pretty busy too, and a lot of the same meetings. That was April 1st was the 6 police interviews, and I believe the top 3 we're looking pretty hard at. Then on the 3rd, we had the after-action report for AJ that has resigned from our police department and accepted a job at Cold Spring. And we did the marathon work session, discussed an awful lot from library to food trucks to who should be talking to the media and social media, and had a very good discussion on everything. And we just got done with Public Works, and we had quite a number of topics that'll be coming to the council in the future.
Regarding the work session, there was talk at that work session where we were going to maybe schedule another one to hit those agenda items that we couldn't get to. In talking to Jennifer before our meeting tonight, I think I'm going to try and connect with she and Tarek sometime tomorrow to discuss another working session along with the retreat that we've been discussing for a while. So if anybody has thoughts on either of those, it might not hurt to shoot me an email or catch me after the meeting or talk to Jennifer or Tarek, and hopefully we can get something figured out and come with a firm proposal on the 28th. So just wanted to mention that before I forgot. Ms. Burke.
I had the community ed board. We recapped the winter festival and reviewed the summer planning. So those brochures should be coming out pretty soon. We had the council working session that we already mentioned, and I did the environmental board where we discussed the upcoming citywide cleanup.
All right, Ms. Slaney.
I only had the working session, all mine are this week.
Great. Mr. Thielen.
I'm the same, just a working session.
All right. Turning then to our department head reports, Mr. Mergen.
All right, thank you. First of all, down at the water plant, the filter media replacement is going to happen sometime in early April. I just want to remind residents that the filter will be down for approximately a week to 10 days, and we will be adding some phosphates to sequester the iron, but they may see some discoloration in their water. So just an FYI. One of the items at the Public Works Committee meeting we discussed was you're seeing these letters from insurance, several different insurance companies asking, or they're wanting to sell you insurance for replacing your water or your sewer service lines. Just want to clarify it, these are not sponsored in any way by the city. We're not recommending them. It is from private insurance companies direct. So we will also be reading meters next week. Hydrant flushing, we will wait till after the filter media has been replaced. We will take it up then. The spring cleanup, as it was mentioned, will be April the 30th, again up at the Township Hall. So, Water Festival, we're still working on that. It is coming together. Just an FYI, or a bit of information, last year on this date, we were out sweeping streets. The monitoring wells for the contamination at Midtown, they will be sampled somewhere between the 23rd and the 25th. They don't have it, but airport fuel, we're looking at purchasing a load for out there. It is starting to get down. Also ordered salt, and just for information, the water leak we had on Business 23 was about approximately 20,000 gallons a day. So, that's all I have.
And that's been fixed and taken care of.
Correct?
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Ron? All right. Mr. Alderfi?
All right, I was out last week, but I did participate in the working session. Also, we had the budget and finance the week before, and you also already mentioned the special policies and procedures where we interviewed police officer candidates. I also testified at the Senate Environment and Natural Resource Finance hearing, a bill sponsored by Senator Howe to get some funding for an independent study on the water, not only in our city, but in 3 other cities that were mentioned in the lawsuit. And he asked me to come participate, or give a testimony, which I did. I gave him the history and background and overview of the Midtown Station here in town.
And the result of that was that they did absolutely nothing with it. All right, thank you. Any questions for Tark? Okay. We'll move on then to the adoption of our consent agenda, which includes the minutes from the Budget and Finance and the Environmental Board, the vouchers on page 2 totaling. Thanks, Jean.
Just in case.
No, I'm a step ahead of myself. I'm checking things off in the wrong order. So we do have our public open forum, which is just 10 minutes if anyone wants to talk to us about anything that may or may not be on the agenda. Depending on who's here and wants to speak, we just divide it between you. We're not going to take any action on anything unless it's something that's on later in the agenda, but otherwise, if you want to address us, you can. I know we have the food truck ordinance. I believe there are a number of people here for that. If you wanted to speak on that, you could do so now. Otherwise, my thought was I would open it up for just some brief comment once we got to that part, if anyone wants to talk about it then. Okay. Then we'll move on to the consent agenda.
That's good.
Minutes from that meeting, the vouchers totaling $176,136.86, along with the resignation of an officer, and we wish him the very best. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
So, second.
I heard it from Jean, and I seconded by Hertzberg. Any discussion on the consent agenda? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
We opposed? None. That carries. Okay. Meeker County Co-op Vibrant, page 4 of our agenda. I see some gentlemen in the back. If you wouldn't mind just using the podium so that we can hear you and just introduce yourselves and talk to us a little bit about what's going on and what you're requesting.
Good evening. First of all, thanks Tarek, Mayor, Council for inviting us, letting us give you a little update on what Meeker Co-op Light and Power Association is all about and our Vibrant Broadband Project. I'm Tim Mergen, the General Manager of Meeker Co-op Light and Power. I'll give you just a couple quick minutes here of Meeker Co-op and then I will turn it over to our Electric and Operations Manager, Electric and Broadband Operations Manager Luke Johnson, and he can fill you in on some of the other details. But just real quick, the co-op was founded in 1935 to provide electricity. We provide electricity to basically 6 counties throughout the area. About 75% of those members are within Meeker County, and then we hit all the other counties that surround Meeker County, from Stearns to McLeod, Wright, Renville, Candy, Ohio. Yeah, I think I got them all there. But anyhow, we serve about 8,000 electric customers in that area. And we started investigating, looking at broadband services in 2015. In 2018, the board made the decision to get into that business, to provide it. We sort of did it with the intention that we needed to get fiber into our 14 substations around the area. And we figured off of that we could piggyback and provide broadband service, high-speed broadband service to our members and others. In 2019, July of 2019 to be exact, we wound up hooking up our first customer on Vibrant Broadband, and we've been going ever since that point. So gives you a real quick background. I want to thank you. We worked with Paynesville here because our system is we call it a hybrid system. We have both fiber in the ground and we have a wireless system. With that wireless system, we have 49 towers throughout our system, roughly every 5 or 6 miles away from each other. And that, we have one of those towers actually on the city of Paynesville's property up on the hill on the water tower there, and we worked back in the day with the city to provide that. And then also we have several services with the city that you have hooked up with us on Vibrant, and everybody tells me that it's working great, so great to hear. So that's all I have at this point. I will turn it over to Luke Johnson, and he can give you a little bit better detail as to what we're planning to do, hoping to do here with the city's involvement with broadband. Thank you.
All right, perfect. So you can direct your attention to the screens there, and I'll go through the overview of some different maps that I have breaking down the city aerial views that we have. Again, as Tim had mentioned, I'm Luke Johnson, the Electric and Broadband Operations Manager, and I appreciate your time and the council's time for hearing us out this evening. So if you don't mind advancing, thank you. On the screen here, that's our overview, what we have broke down. The orange lines represent the current fiber that we have throughout Paynesville, both the city and the outlying areas. The blue lines would represent our expansion. This would be 100% fiber deployment expansion throughout the city of Paynesville. So in total, what there's left with those blue lines, 735 homes and 74 businesses, totaling about 11.5 miles of fiber. So our total project cost is estimated at $1.5 million. Broke the city down into 2 separate phases, phase 1 being south of Highway 55. So all of those blue lines that show up there gives us 140 homes and approximately 70 businesses passed, 3 miles of fiber there. This portion of the project would cost about $500,000 to do. And so what we're looking for is some financial help from the city with some ARPA funding at 30%. And that 30% would be $150,000 of that $500,000. Phase 2 would be north of Highway 55. And within that phase, there's 595 homes and 57 businesses. It's about 8.5 miles of fiber left there. And the total project for phase 2 would be $1 million. So again, looking for 30% if we can move into phase 2, totaling $300,000 from the city. So in summary, phase 1, 140 homes, 17 businesses, looking for $150,000, 30% of the total project cost for phase 1. Phase 2, 595 homes, 57 businesses, and looking for $300,000 in funding for phase 2. As far as timelines go for either of these projects, we're open to discussions on that. Could certainly move as soon as this year if need be. And if we needed to push phase 2 off to 23 or out further, we're open to that as well. At this time, I'll open it up to any questions that any council members or Mr. Mayor may have.
Does anybody have any questions for either Luke or Tim?
You want to eat up all of our funds there. Looks to me like that last year and this year we're at 275, and you want 450, so we're 175 short before we even start.
Sure. Understood.
Just to clarify, I think for phase 2, the discussion that we had would be based on the outcome of what the new infrastructure funding would be, which we don't know yet.
Sure. Yep. Exactly.
Because there is a special segment in the federal funding specifically for broadband. We don't know what that's going to be yet.
So looking at any future funding vehicles, or funds that the city may get, if we can entertain that for phase 2. Absolutely.
I believe when we talked about putting the antenna up on the water tower, we talked a little bit about download speeds and things like that. And at that point, I believe the system was capped at 75 megabits per second. Is that still the case?
Actually, on fixed wireless, 100 meg.
Okay.
Yep. Yep, but with fiber, that's a completely different ballgame. We can push up to a gig with fiber.
Okay. And is your pricing competitive with that?
Yes.
And the reason I ask is we're looking at $450,000 of city taxpayer dollars to go into a for-profit corporation.
Can I clarify that just real quick? We are not, we are a cooperative, so there's no for-profit in that regard. It is owned by the 8,000 members that we supply electricity to. So Luke, myself, anybody else, we gain no nickel out of expanding this other than providing a service that's needed.
Okay.
So,
But unfortunately, Painesville residents aren't members of that cooperative. Or are we eligible?
for the most part, you're right. There's maybe a few on the fringes, but for the most part, you're correct.
Okay.
Well, one of the issues you're gonna have is there's some residences or businesses that already have theirs set up and are not gonna wanna switch. So when you've got all these homes on here, those are the ones that are gonna be available for Vibrant, but not all of them are gonna take it.
So we completely understand that.
I'm sure.
We've been in this, doing this long enough now we're fully aware of that. The one thing I will tell you is with the service we've provided, the limited lines that you saw that we have in there, with the limitations that even we have with the tower on the hill, Painesville has been very good to us. We have gotten a lot of inquiries from people, how do we get this, how do we get this, how do we get this? That's why we're here.
See, when it comes to looking for the ARPA money, that's gonna filter out to others making the same request. So we have to draw a line or have a discussion of how this is gonna get distributed. So that's one of the issues that we're gonna be having along the way.
By the numbers that I'm calculating, the city money would be about a $560 per potential hookup subsidy from the government, with an average cost of about $18.65 per connection for the whole project. The most expensive part of that being south of 55 on a per household basis. I know I have no issues with our current internet provider, but from the look of the local Facebook page, I'm probably the only one. So competition in this area is needed. I just don't know that I can stomach the taxpayer subsidizing it.
Well,
I guess I'd like,
go ahead, Neil.
I'd like to put it on hold till we know what the feds and state are gonna do. If they're gonna give us an incentive we can't refuse, then I guess we couldn't refuse. But right now, I'm in favor of refusal.
Well, that was my suggestion, Neil, was there are gonna be specific federal funds dedicated to broadband. So that will technically not be taking taxpayer dollars, it'll be requesting federal funds for broadband. The ARPA money, though, that is, I think that's where the discussion is right now, because ARPA would be what we're looking at for phase one, and then there are other things that we could do with the city with the phase one, the ARPA money.
I'm more than open to funneling through any federal grant monies if they have to come through the city to be distributed that way. But I think there are some things around the city that we could do with the ARPA money that we received now that the restrictions are lifted. Before, where we thought we were going to be sort of stuck only on limited issues, I would have said, yes, don't let it go to waste. But if we can use the money that we have from the feds to reduce the local tax burden, I think I'd rather look there at this point. I don't know if anyone else has other thoughts on it. Appreciate you gentlemen coming.
No, I certainly understand that. Again, I appreciate you guys letting us gals, come in and talk to you. The ARPA funds, our broadband is one of the things that the ARPA funds can be used for. That's why we're here. I understand you've got other priorities, so be it. And when the infrastructure dollars roll around, I will make sure I'm talking to Tarek and probably back here to talk to the rest of you at that point. So, thank you.
We hope we see you in town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, moving on then to item B, a report from Belinda regarding the annual liquor licenses. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, Belinda. Otherwise, we'd be looking for a motion to approve.
No, I don't have anything to add. It's the same ones that we've had the last number of years, so nothing new, no law changes.
That was gonna be my question, if it's the same, so.
Yep.
With that in mind, I'll make the motion to approve the 3.2% on-sale beer licenses for Coronas Lanes, Painesville Baseball Club Incorporated, and Quick Trip Incorporated.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Hertzberg, seconded by Brick, as stated on the action sheet, to approve the liquor licenses for the businesses listed on the agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? None carries. Okay, item C, the Glacial Lakes Trail Letter of Support. Tarek, do you want to tell us anything more about this?
Yeah, I was approached by Jeff Bertram, who's working with this in New London, and they are also seeking funding for extending their trail, and they asked us for a letter of support, similar to the letter of support that we asked for other towns nearby too.
Is this a form letter or something you drafted on your own?
I drafted on my own.
All right, so we'd be looking for a motion to approve sending the letter and showing our support for the trail extension.
I'll make the motion to approve and send the letter of support to the Glacial Lakes Trail Extension from New London to Sibley State Park.
Second.
We have a motion by Thielen, second by Soini, to approve and send the letter of support for the trail extension. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? Carries. Right. To the Ludwigs for discussion of the annual liquor transfer.
Yes, go here, microphone.
So our 2021 audit is starting to wind down. And we always wait till the very end to do the annual transfer from the liquor fund to the general fund to help with our operating expenses, just to make sure that the funds are there to do so. This year, Bill is just a little bit short on those. We had budgeted for a $40,000 transfer. Right now, where they're sitting, the auditors believe after the pension entry and everything is entered, he's going to have an increase of $32,050 in his operating fund. So the council would need to make a decision if they want to transfer that amount, or if they want to transfer the 40 and take the remainder out of his operating fund or out of his capital improvement. I'll let Bill talk on what he feels, but that's the point anyway.
Just so we're clear, the rewards program is where that money went last year, and I think we've talked about that. But, and we've made those adjustments. We've seen a decrease in those funds given away this year. So, and the several cities that did the same program we did, we are all communicating to see what we can do so it doesn't happen again. But, we have money in our savings account, we have money in our checking account that we could make that full transfer.
How does the sales in January and February this year compare to the sales in January and February last year?
Down, they're down. Nationwide, they're down. Not just us, it's, people are going back to work, they're not staying home drinking like they were for 2 years. So, so they're trending downward, but we're still way ahead of 2019 where we should be, way ahead of that, so.
We budgeted 40,000 for the budget, didn't we?
Yeah.
So if we only take 32, that shorts.
What's the budget?
But you'd be okay, you have enough?
You know, for what we made the last 2 years, we put in reserves
Yeah.
for capital improvement for hopefully a building someday. We have that money, plenty, sitting there.
Because we took
We did.
less. Oh, we took an extra one.
We took extra last year.
No, what we did
No.
last year is we
We
took
transferred to the capital
extra that he
improvement,
had
right?
to the capital improvement fund
Oh, yeah.
for any potential building in the future.
Okay.
And that would be my recommendation, if you want to do the full 40, my recommendation would be to take out of his operating fund versus his capital improvement. If he's got it there, why hit that savings?
Because how much did we transfer to the capital improvement?
Almost 70,000
I
left.
thought it was quite
It was quite a bit.
substantial.
73, maybe?
Yeah, it's pretty close, 73, off the top of my head.
Yeah, only because we had that substantial excess last year, and we came in with a balanced budget, not wanting to, trying increasingly hard to not dip into our reserves.
Yeah.
I would be in favor of taking the 40 with any extra to come out of the capital improvement.
No, the operating.
Operating.
Is what they recommend. Yeah, I'll make that motion to approve the transfer of 40,000 from the liquor fund 105 to general fund 100.
Second.
Okay. So I have a motion from Soini, seconded by Hertzberg, to transfer 40,000 from Fund 105 to General Fund 100. Any further discussion on this? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries.
I abstained.
Okay. All right, so then with the census, I keep wanting to say caucus, but that is not the right word. With the census and the new boundary lines for representatives and things like that, we need to pass another resolution establishing our polling precinct, which has not changed, and we still only have one precinct here in town. So this is merely a technicality, but one that we need to do anyway. And we do have an updated resolution in our update packets. Looks like it's correcting just a typographical error where there was an 8 instead of the letter B.
Yeah, I got the resolution with the typo, and actually Bill caught it when he reviewed the agenda, so I wouldn't have known it should have been an 8 or a B, but Bill got it.
All right. Well, thank you, Bill. So we'd be looking for a motion to approve Resolution 2022-09.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Soini. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Thielen to approve Resolution 2022-09, reestablishing precincts and polling places for the city of Painesville. Any further discussion on that? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? None? Carries. Okay. Purchase of an F-150. Ron?
All right, thank you. The Public Works Committee just discussed this prior to here. And Lee is currently driving a 2013 F-150 and has approximately 65,000 miles on. Our intent would be to switch that vehicle over to the part-time truck. The part-time unit is a 2003 unit with about 140,000 on, and it has seen its better day. I would like to keep it through the summer and likely surplus it this fall. We do have the two prices, the one from Yarnum Ford being the low at the $30,763. The funds would all come out of the CIPs from the Park Street Water and Sewer evenly. So, and the Public Works Committee did recommend moving forward with it.
And Ron, is this all part of your regular,
Replacement schedule?
Yes.
Correct. Yes, it is.
and all of these monies exist in those capital improvement plans right
They
now?
do, yes.
I assume that this truck is something that Yarman's going to need to order?
Correct.
Any idea of
How long?
next year, 6 years?
I was.
They would not give me a specific time. It could be, they were kind of throwing out 2 to 6 months.
Because we're still waiting on the other one that we ordered, right?
We are, yes.
But get it ordered before the prices go up.
Yes.
Any other questions for Ron? Otherwise, we'd be looking for a motion on this.
I'll make the motion to approve the quote from Yarman Ford in the amount of $30,763 for a 22 F-150 Super Cab with funds to be taken out of Park Street Water and Sewer at 25% each. And that's a very good bid. I wonder where the other half of the truck is.
I'll second.
A motion by Hertzberg, seconded by Brick, to approve the quote from Yarman Ford in the amount of $30,000. Oh, Ron.
I would just like to note also, they do work with Midway Ford, and that is the state contract bid on that also, just so it's for the record.
All right, so we have a motion to approve the quote from Yarman in the amount of $30,763 for a 2022 F-150 Super Cab with funds to be taken from the Park, Street, Water, and Sewer Departments at 25% each. Any further discussion? The only thought I had, Yarman had an XL truck that they got in and somebody rejected. Is that?
I think that was a diesel.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? None? That carries. Okay. Continuing to talk about Yarman, but in a very different manner here. Contracting for storage units for the police department. Tarek, are you familiar with this, or?
I do have some information on it. Because we're losing our space next door here, Chief Wagner was looking for some extra storage, and he managed to get I think 3 garages for now, at a price, equal to or less than what we're paying now.
It was suggested to me by someone around town that we should use the space between the 2 public works buildings and put a garage there, or a fenced-in area to store some of these cars, so that we wouldn't need a storage unit. But Ron, I think that's where you wanted to build the new salt shed, isn't it?
That is correct.
Yes,
So that's
sand
not
and
gonna work
salt.
out. Yeah.
Well, I also think for most of the impounds that we're getting that are hardly worth the tow and the storage that we have on them, a fenced-in area makes sense. And I was wondering about on the south side of the ambulance shed, if a fence could be built high enough and kind of like what we have around our storm retention ponds, and use that for the impounds. And the chief said that with new regs, there's going to be less and less DWI forfeitures, so a 2-year lease, we might be renting garages that'll be empty. I can see the 1 or 2 for the bikes and
Surplus, yeah.
surplus that, we do need to, maybe 2's enough, and I don't know, what would it cost to put a fence up?
Yeah, how big of area?
Well,
How many storage units?
Cars, I suppose.
I think a good rule of thumb, number probably be about $25 a foot.
Yeah, the wood one I put up was about $3,000, and I did that one myself. That was just materials. I think that's something worth exploring, but until we get something built, it's $45 a month. We're locked into a contract for 2 years. We don't have to expand to a 4th. I think it makes sense to go forward on this now and then explore the potential for doing something where we can eliminate one of those sheds in the future. But without the chief being here, I don't want to say just 2 of them tonight.
It comes out cheaper than what we're paying now, at the $45 a month.
How many sheds are you renting now?
Well, it's just one space, but it's bigger.
It's equivalent to 4 garages, I think. Yeah.
It could hold 4 vehicles.
So right now, we're getting 3, or we're asking for 3, with a potential 4th down the road, but it's 3 at $45 a month for 2 years, locked in.
Well, the price is fair, I know that, because they vary anywhere from 50, 55 to 80 around town, so. I'd still rather see a outdoor storage for the impounds.
I think it would make sense for us to approve this and then start looking at some sort of alternative that we can do by the expiration of this contract.
Yeah, we don't have the luxury of waiting because they have to move out
Right.
soon. So we have to do something now.
Yep.
I'll make the motion to approve the lease agreement with AITH LLC for police department storage at a rate of $45 a month per unit for 3 units, with the option for a 4th unit once it becomes available.
We have a motion by Soini as stated on the action sheet. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Brick, to approve the lease agreement with AITH LLC for police department storage at $45 per month per unit, 3 units with the option for a 4th. Any further discussion on this? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries. And then Tarek, if you just want to talk to Chief when he gets back about looking at other options and things like that.
I got it.
Okay. Right, then we're going into old business, item A, the Ford truck ordinance. We did discuss this at our working session last week. We discussed a couple of changes. I redlined those changes and Jennifer included them in here. Also some additional things that we talked about. I included a restaurant, brick and mortar restaurant definition on page 1. There's a change in section 10-173 where Department of Health was changed to Department of Agriculture. Talking to a resident, I understand that the Department of Health doesn't do any inspections or licensing. It's all done by Stearns County, and then the Department of Ag does just a very select few things. So that's why that was changed there. Then we have the residential changes in section 10-175, paragraph B, which is the same residential property for 7 days, not just a residential property. Moving through then, page 28 of our agenda, section 14, changed that language to 150 feet, and then changed it to allow an exemption for anything that's operating as part of a permitted event, such as where the Chamber of Commerce closes off a city street, then the distance restrictions would not apply for that. Paragraph 19, we talked about unless storing it on a driveway, so that was a hard, non-permeable surface. So front yard storage is acceptable as long as it's on a driveway or something of the like. Also, a clarification from out of service to non-serving was made just to make sure that our language fits with the industry standards. And then in reviewing paragraph 19, we should probably change the first word "an" to "a." Those were the changes that were made since this was posted for discussion. I believe we have a number of people here who are interested in it. I said at the public forum period that if we're talking about food truck, that I'd give some people a chance to speak now if you wanted to. So I'm thinking, I don't know if anybody wants to talk to us about this, okay? 5 minutes, 5 minutes apiece, would that be sufficient? Katie's shaking her head yes. Okay.
Yes.
So if you wouldn't mind, if we could just have you go to the microphone, just let us know who you are so we can get it in the minutes. And then we'll listen. If we've got questions, we can follow up and hopefully get some things answered and taken care of. I don't know. Becky, since you're closest.
First, I'd like to thank you guys for listening to my concerns that I addressed with a few of you. I really appreciate it. And thank you also for changing some of the things. I just had a couple first questions for you. The out-of-service food unit versus non-serving food unit, can you give me a little more clarification on that for the storage and the...
Yeah, so as I intended it, and this came a little bit in my discussions with Brian, it was his suggestion to change it to non-serving. Basically, if it's not it's not being used to serve people at the time. You know, if the curtains are down or the, whatever you want to call it, is down, so you're not open for business, then storing it, you know, on the driveway or whatever would be fine.
So like for next winter, I'm planning on hopefully being able to tuck it away for the winter, but I will still need my appliances and everything running. So would that apply? I mean, I wouldn't be serving out of it, but I would be
Yep.
in my driveway.
Yeah.
Yep.
And as long as it's in the driveway, that's totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so the clarification was made, you know, when it was originally posted, it just said not stored in the front yard. And we said, well, we don't want to exclude storage in like a driveway. So we added language, I don't know if you have the agenda, there might be an extra copy, but it's on page 28 that says you can't store it in the front yard unless it's on a non-permeable surface like a driveway.
Yep, and I saw that.
Yeah.
My next point I wanted to make is the insurance. Okay, I have been licensed and insured since day one. The state of Minnesota requires $1 million each occurrence, $2 million annual aggregate. That's what Minnesota requires. When I was looking at the original policy before the changes were updated, I contacted my longtime insurance agency or insurance person who has multiple years insuring food units. And he was kind of at a loss as to why they would require 1.5 and 2 million. Because first he said, and I understand the verbiage in the policy that, you know, if you need to get an umbrella, you can get an umbrella. But the point I want to make is, we're trying to expand small business, not squash it. I am not prepared, and the market is not in Painesville, to pay an extra $700 a year minimum for that coverage. Because what would have to happen is insurance companies do not write policies like that. So I would have to buy a $500,000 umbrella. And then the ordinance also says $2 million annual aggregate, which is fine. But if I bought a $500,000 annual umbrella, bumping it up to 1.5 each occurrence, that would mean that the annual aggregate is $3 million. They don't write a policy for that, so I'd have to buy an extra policy to reach $4 million because it always has to go at least twice that each occurrence. So that would be, I was quoted an extra $700 a year, which is fine if you want to move forward with it. I just more than likely will not be doing business in town because the money's not to be had here. That's something for like if I go to Stevens County Fair, you know, I know I'm gonna make that money back, you know. 3 car lengths. I know you and me had talked, Sean, about that, and I just want a clarification on that, because you said like the downtown area and stuff. I wouldn't actually be going on Main Street. I don't think it's appropriate. I wouldn't want to get in the way of shoppers or anything. But outskirts area where there is not any marked areas, would that 3 car length still apply? And where I'm going with that is my trailer's 20 feet, okay, hooked up to the truck. Obviously, we're looking at probably about 4.5 car lengths, which is fine, I can disconnect. However, and we found this out the hard way, I would have to put up cones in front of that hitch in order to get that trailer, the truck back in there to hook it back up, because people like to park real close to whatever they can for whatever reason. And if I put cones out, yeah, it would be the length of the truck and then some, because you have to go maneuver the truck in there.
So I'll answer all your questions, but I just want to know, because we are running a little short on time, anything else that you want to talk about with that? Because I want to make sure that we just hear everything that you want to talk about.
Night shift. At one point, we were approached from one of the big businesses in town to see if we wanted to serve their night shift. Ordinance says have to be done in the commercial areas by 9 p.m. I'm wondering if a variance can be made for that, because a lot of our business is, you know, serving breaks. And I don't foresee a problem with that. You're in the commercial area, plus all the kitchens in town are closed.
Okay.
And then I had another question for you. The ordinance mentioned workman's comp. Now, the way I read it was if you're exempt from the state, you don't have to get it, you don't need it in town, right? Or is town making you get workman's comp even if?
Bill, I can't imagine that we would require something the state wouldn't have for work comp. Is that your understanding of this?
I mean, I don't know how you're exempt from workers' comp. You'd have to have workers' comp if you had employees, but if it's just you, you don't have to carry workers' comp
Right.
yourself.
Yeah, the exemption on workers' comp for any of the food truck at any events we go to is if it's immediate family, and that's in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah.
You don't have to have it.
You're exempt, then you're exempt.
That's with any business.
Correct.
Not just food trucks.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't need workman's comp for your own family.
Yeah, but I mean, if you had employees, you'd have to have workers' comp. I don't think we're meaning to require workers' comp. It's not required by law, but.
And one more, I just wanted to touch on that FDA versus MDH. I am actually working with the MDH, so they do actually license food units.
But not in Stearns County.
Yeah, they do.
Nope. They have zero jurisdiction in Stearns County.
This is true, but there is an inspector in this area, and they work out of Meeker.
There's inspectors, but it doesn't prove anything for Paynesville because they have zero jurisdiction in Paynesville.
Okay.
But
just
the
wanted
thing
to-
that bothers me about that change is you could have somebody who is in Meeker County that has a valid food truck license, and it's from the Minnesota Department of Health.
Yep.
I mean, that's what seems weird about changing that language, because the Minnesota Department of Health clearly issues
Correct.
licenses for food trucks.
So there's a map that shows the MDH, sorry.
I don't want to, I want to get to, I want to talk about that, but Brian, I think you can answer that question
I
best.
can cover
But
that
can you
part pretty good.
Do it from the microphone?
Sure.
Sorry. So we'll talk MDH. Becky, I've got, I'm gonna go down my list. Insurance, the car lengths, night shift, serving on breaks, and then the Department of Health licensure piece. Anything else that you would like us to talk about and address?
I don't think so. You did that 300 feet to 150 feet. I appreciate that. And thank you for that also by clarifying that, how you measure that. That's very helpful. And I just want to add with the MDH, Bill here, he had a good point. Because if someone comes to town from Meeker County, you know, why would they have to get a Stearns County license if they're buying a city license, if they're licensed by the state, you know what I'm saying? And a lot of other cities do that too. It's either the county license or the state license, and you're good to go to get a permit. I just want to cover on that.
Yeah, so the insurance, and I'll just tell you from a drafting standpoint, we took that insurance piece from the city of Wilmer's ordinance. That's what Wilmer requires if you go to operate and license your food truck in Wilmer. That's
I
what
understand
it
that.
came from.
I understand that. However, I don't do business in Wilmer for that reason. Monticello has the state limits. And there's a lot more business over there. They get a lot more over there. So I just wanted to throw that out there. It just
So-
makes a difference on who you benchmark off of.
And what I was gonna say is if the council wants to make a motion to pass this with that change, we can, but that's where the 1.5 and the 2 million came from, was what exists over there. Car lengths, we did talk about that at the working session, how that would be measured, how we wanted to do that. Because we said if you're on, you know, for example, down here on the east side of the street, you're parking parallel to the curb. If you're on the other side, you're parking diagonal to the curve. It's 3 parking spots wherever they're marked. So I don't know, given the different parking spots we have around town, if we could set a strict measurement. You got 3 spots. And that means that you're looking at parking spots downtown or by Gazebo Park, and I don't think we have any other painted spots, do we?
Diagonal parking?
Or any
Or any
parking
parking
spots?
spot.
Things that are actually painted on the road as a spot.
And in a parking lot or something, it wouldn't
Right.
matter.
So if it's not marked or anything like that, I don't know that we'd have a way of measuring it.
Okay.
The point is to just maximize or minimize the spots that are being taken away from people who are downtown shopping or at the park, whatever it is. So,
The other one would be Veterans Park.
Yeah,
yeah, Veterans Park, I suppose, does have some marked out there.
they also have a
That-
path that
Also, if you guys, for clarification on that, if you're serious about that, if you could put that in the verbiage, that would be really helpful.
Okay, night shift serving, we did discuss that a little bit. We can talk about that some more as a council. The insurance or the licensure issue, as I understand it, is that in order to operate a food truck within Stearns County, you have to have a Stearns County inspection certificate. So that even if, my understanding is that even if you are licensed in Meeker, Hennepin, Ramsey, anything else, if you want to set up in St. Cloud, you got to get your Stearns County.
Nope, it's either Stearns County or MDH.
Nope,
Yes, it is. I'm working with the inspector on that.
then they're wrong. I
Well,
have,
then you call Zoe and tell her that.
not a problem.
Because she said, I can get an annual license there. She said, my Stearns County license is good, I can get an annual license, but I save half on that annual license if I get an MDH license.
So MDH
Yep,
jurisdiction, they have a jurisdictional map. If you go on
I
there,
understand that.
it will
Why don't
show
you
you
call
what
Zoe?
counties.
Hold on.
That's
I
fine.
I don't want to have arguing back and forth between the gallery. I
It's fine.
appreciate the information.
Yep.
I understand back, someone's from NDH is telling you that. Ryan, your understanding is that it's very different.
I would like to point
I wouldn't
out,
buy 10 counties worth of permits if it wasn't necessary.
So,
well, you always have to buy the city permit, so, but I would like
No,
to
not
point
city,
out,
county.
I would like to point out, though, that our menus are totally different. Okay, he goes through FDA because he's a limited menu. I go through
Not
MDH because
FDA.
I'm,
I'm licensed MDH.
hold on.
oh, because I seen on Facebook you said FDA.
Okay.
No.
No, we're not going to get this back and forth.
Yep.
I'm not going to, we'll just stop. I understand that this is very personal on multiple levels. We're here to find an ordinance that respects and supports all of our local businesses, respects and supports food trucks. I love me a good food truck. I want to see more of them in town. The point of this ordinance is not to limit it, it's just to make sure that we have some common sense regulations in place so that they're regulated, so that we don't get complaints from people that says, oh, they were too close to my restaurant. We know too close is within 150 feet, so that we don't get complaints of impeding traffic and things like that. That's what this is meant to do. It's to strike that compromise on everyone here. So I don't want to have, we're not going to get into back and forth about who's licensed how. If there's an issue, we can address it and think about it. But we want to make sure that we're supporting, at least that's my perspective, is that we're supporting all of our local entrepreneurs and our community. So I think maybe we have a question on whether or not MDH can license. Maybe that's something where we need to table this. I think Katie wanted to talk about some things, so Katie, if you wouldn't mind stepping up, and then as a council, we can discuss all of the concerns and everything that's been raised.
Well, Sean, I just think that with this ordinance, is we want to just have a level playing field and that everybody follows by the same set of rules.
Yep. Thanks, Katie.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to stand to the side here, otherwise you can't.
That's fine, but if you wouldn't mind just pulling the microphone down a little bit then. Thank you.
There we go. Okay, so I'm going to take a sidestep and just talk about fiber for a minute. Fiber is going to be really essential for our growth in our business sector. With fiber, we can attract IT companies who are going to pay extraordinarily well, and companies who will offer the children of our community a well-funded and stable future. IT jobs typically start at over $50,000 per year and top out at over $500,000 per year. Not getting fiber in our community, in a larger area, is going to be detrimental to our community. It's going to be detrimental to getting other businesses into our community that pay well. It will also affect our children's future and their economic viability. And the amount that Meeker is asking for is a drop in the bucket. It's very tiny compared to the positive financial impact it will have on our community. So that's kind of off on the side. Food trucks. So I own a board game shop downtown, and I don't have them yet, but I would like to at some point have events where I am having chess tournaments, Magic the Gathering tournaments, Pokemon tournaments. And as part of that, if I was going to have, say, a chess tournament on a Sunday after Queen Bee's is closed, after Firehouse is closed, after the eatery is closed, there isn't food to provide to my tournament goers. So I'm going to request that, wow, I did that incorrectly here. So long story short, I'm going to request that that the ordinance does not hamper downtown events and revitalization and possible future events. I'm asking for food truck exemptions for the farmer's market because I do not believe that they are part of the chamber, and they are less than 150 feet from Queen Bee's and Jumpstart Nutrition. I provide, I sell lotion and I sell chapstick. There's no way that I can, go to the farmer's market and say to Tiffany, who also, she has goats, and so she has chapstick and lotion. I'm not going to go to her and say, you can't sell lotion and you can't sell chapstick because you're too close to me. That's against fair market principles. So I'm asking for exceptions for special events and downtown events and local business events, not necessarily in tandem with the chamber because not everybody is a part of the chamber. I would like to see, instead of the blank 150 feet, to have local control in which an area business would be able to invite a food truck. That would prevent, food trucks from outside of our community that don't have a connection to our community from just parking in front of, say, Firehouse, because we want to make sure that we're protecting our own. We want to make sure that we're protecting our local restaurants from potential outside economic influences. So I'm going to ask you to consider those items. And I want to thank you for being here and doing all the work that you do, because I know it's not easy.
Thank you, Katie. Brian, would you mind just giving us your understanding of the licensure issue?
Yeah, do I have to use the microphone?
Could you please?
You might need to move it.
That's fine.
Oh, the other one.
The other one?
Yeah,
All right, how's that?
perfect.
Okay, so as far as how the licensing works for, it's all county-based. So now if you have MDH, and they have a jurisdictional map right on their website that shows which counties they do and do not have their license or jurisdiction through, and it's because of they can't get everywhere to do inspections, and some counties license it, like say our Anoka County, we have to get an Anoka County license because they do their own inspections, they do all their own thing. The Minnesota Department of Health doesn't inspect there. Stearns County has their own health department. So the MDH doesn't do inspections. So if they don't do an inspection there, cities will not be okay with that because since the Minnesota Department of Health has no jurisdiction in Stearns County, nobody in the Department of Health can come out and do an inspection on said unit. So that's why they do that. So like we have licenses in Stearns County, we have licenses in Anoka County, we have an MDH license, we have a Clay County license, because every city requires you to have a license within that county if they have their own health department. Now like say Candiota County, they and Hennepin County will do reciprocity. I think that's the right word. So if I have MDH, their county acknowledges MDH, you just have to pay a nominal filing fee and get your license through them. But it all falls down to inspections. If the state doesn't have jurisdiction there, they can't do an inspection there, therefore they don't want that in that area. Does that make sense? I don't know
I
how to
understand what you're
clarify.
saying. I see some skepticism on the part of our city attorney, if I'm reading your face right, Bill, but
And I guess I'll cover the Department of Ag. Department of Ag, so if you have a limited menu that serves 30% or less meat products, you can get a Department of Ag license, which is your mini donuts, any of that stuff, whatever menu might be that has 30% or less meat products. And a Department of Ag license, you can go anywhere in Minnesota with that. I've also never heard of Department of Ag doing an inspection anywhere, so I mean, they're fairly understaffed.
No, they do.
Well,
Yeah.
at food trucks, they barely.
The Lisa that has the space right next to me that has
Okay.
the Jumpstart Nutrition.
Yep.
Her license is through the Department of
Department of
Ag.
Ag.
And they come
Right,
out-
but she's a brick and mortar. So food trucks,
Maybe that's it.
yeah, food trucks, in the food truck world, the Department of Ag is considered lazy. They will not send inspectors out to do inspections on food trucks, because you'd have to track them down, and then you'd have to find them to do an inspection. Where the Department of Health, they will send people out if they have suspicions. Yes.
On the Stearns County license.
Yep.
Is that an annual inspection?
The annual inspection, no. I don't know, I've never been licensed through just Stearns County. So how Stearns County works is almost like Garrett, since we have MDH, they acknowledge the fact that we've been inspected through MDH, so we just pay to have a license through Stearns County. But then we have to follow, Stearns County requires you have an annual, food safety certificate. Just like if you were a brick and mortar.
So unless there's a complaint, there's probably.
Unless there's a complaint, chances are they're probably not gonna come see anything. Or if they happen to see something, then they might, I don't know.
But if you're gonna do business in Stearns County,
If you're,
why would you not want a county license?
well, you can't do business in Stearns County without it as a food, any food operation, unless you have, like I said, a mini donut limited. Like I said, she's a drink, so she doesn't do any food, so she can get a Department of Ag license.
So the Department of Health can authorize it, but they have no enforcement power.
They have no enforcement in said county.
Yeah.
And that's why, yeah, and if you went to their, I don't know if that thing has capabilities of internet.
No.
But you can pull up and you just search MDH jurisdiction map, and it pulls up all the counties. So like, say we go to Rochester, their county gives us like a partial reciprocity. Since we have MDH, they just charge us a filing fee to get their license.
All right. Thanks, Brian.
No problem.
All right, so we have a number of things as a council to discuss regarding this. Before we get into that, I don't want to talk about a bunch of changes and then vote on an ordinance until I've seen the thing in full. If we bring this back at our next meeting, do we have to repost and republish? If we revise some things tonight?
I would say yes.
Well, we don't publish, we post. So, I mean, if we make the changes and we repost for 10 days, we can act on it after the 10 days.
Okay. So, that's where I'd like to go, is just to make sure that we have the final document in front of us before we take a vote. Anyone can make a motion if they don't agree, but that's where I'd like to go with it. Regarding the insurance limits, like I said, the numbers that we got, the 1.5 and the 2 came from the city of Wilmer. I understand from Becky that the state limits are 1 million and 2, and it's going to cost her about an extra $700 or so per year, which would prevent her from doing business in town. I'd be fine with changing
I'm
it.
fine with changing it.
I agree.
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
don't think beyond the state limits are necessary.
yep.
okay. So in section 10-174, we can change those to $1 million. It looks like it's just in that paragraph A. Okay. Car lengths, we talked about the enforcement of that being only where there are designated parking spots.
Just put in the word marked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have a question on that.
yeah.
So we're saying 3 marked spaces, but Becky said, well, then I gotta use cones so I can hook up the truck when it's time. Well, then, if you're gonna do that, you might as well leave the truck hooked up. I mean, you'd still be utilizing 4 spaces. And I think our intent is 3 max.
But it won't be in a marked space then, that's the point. It'll be in an unmarked.
Right, so like, Brian, if you drove your truck downtown, you'd take up 2, maybe 3 if they're a diagonal?
Well, we're big enough, we have to go sideways, but we don't do, that doesn't necessarily pertain to how we operate. We do breweries and stuff like that. We don't do anything in city unless it's an event, which at that point, they're making you park a in Timbuktu anyhow. So that really part doesn't pertain to
But, I mean,
anything.
just-
But if we were to park on a city, I mean, we would easily take up, well, we've got 22-foot van and a 28-foot trailer, so,
A lot.
yeah.
So it'd be basically the same amount.
Yeah,
Okay.
and for their same reason, I at least need a space and a half in front so I can at least connect and get out of there when I want to leave.
I think adding in the word marked so that we know we're talking about the two specific areas around town. It's not going to apply if you are in an area where there are no marked spots, be it commercial, residential, industrial, whatever it is. I think just adding in the word marked would solve the concerns that I'm hearing tonight.
I have a question about that. So, under the definition, it says that the food truck is defined as a self-propelled or fully contained trailer. So, let's see here. So when it talks about the spaces, I don't know, Bill, if you want to clarify the wording, does that even include the vehicle that pulls it? Because,
I mean, that's not what it, I mean, I agree with you, it probably doesn't, although they're technically kind of using it if they leave the truck hooked up,
right,
so.
but I'm just, if.
But it's not, by definition, it's not.
It's not part of the food truck that would need to be contained in the 3 spaces?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, could you find the loophole of disconnecting the truck and driving it forward 6 inches?
Just leaving it there? Yeah.
But,
In a parking spot?
Just say, rather than move it and set up cones and,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if it gets to be something where it's a clear obstruction, we have to deal with that a lot, we might want to look at that differently, but as it reads, it doesn't seem to me as though a vehicle used to pull it is included in that space.
Good point.
I read it as long as they're all connected, it counts, and if you disconnect it, well, then maybe you pull it. I guess if we get there, then maybe we talk about metered parking downtown
Yeah.
and move her truck every 2 hours.
I have another question,
Yeah.
that park down there, I don't know what it's called.
Gazebo?
Yeah, there we go. We were actually, offered to do that event this summer, so I don't know if that's an exception there, or if we just park on the corner where it's not marked, or how that works. I've never,
Just park on the corner.
it's a chamber event.
Yeah.
They close the street, so you,
Oh, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, so you
Right.
can park anywhere.
and that's a chamber event, right?
Yeah. Bill, I'd like some information from you to clarify the licensure issue.
How to write it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just call Stearns County, but I mean, my understanding of it is that MDH just gives their authority to the counties that are big enough to have their own inspectors and, but it's still, I mean, that's why I think if you have an MDH license, why Stearns County just gives you a license basically for $5 or whatever it is, because
$100.
they're 100, yeah. But I mean, I think MDH really has the authority statewide, but they've contracted with a lot of counties that have the people to do it. They do restaurants, they have the expertise, so they do it. I mean, but I'll check with Stearns County. And I guess I'll check on, how it works. I can't imagine there aren't people that have licenses through MDH that theoretically could come to Painesville, but I guess maybe they gotta get a Stearns County license if they come to Painesville, but I'll ask. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that would be true, but it probably is.
I think, assuming that it is, then we leave the language as it is in this revised one. But if a Minnesota Department of Health can work statewide, well then, and Stearns County has reciprocity, then maybe we do that and help you guys save $1,000 a year on all of your other county licenses. I don't know. In the last part that we have, as I'm hearing, the concerns are talking about extension of hours to include late nights, potentially at some of the industrial businesses that are operating 24/7. And then to include things like the farmer's market, or, and this goes back to Megan, what you were talking about at the working session, to get rid of the distance requirement if the nearby business is not open.
But I too wanted to point out that I think that whoever's talking about the late nights said that it closed at 9. I believe the ordinance reads 10 if it's a non-residential area, not 9.
Yeah, 8 to 8 residential, 7 to 10 commercial, or anything non-residential.
Okay, and with that hour leeway on both sides to clean up, and as long as they're not serving at the same time, correct? Okay.
So what if their break is 10:30?
As the ordinance is written now, it would not be permitted.
Okay, so.
So I guess the question for the council is, do we want to extend that? And maybe it would make sense to say if an area is marked industrial, 'cause those are the businesses that are going to be operating 24/7 that wouldn't otherwise have access to food. So in an area zoned industrial, limitations don't apply.
Well, normally if you work third shift, your lunch is at 3 a.m.
Right.
So that's just going to open up a whole bunch more questions.
Right, you might have a break at 10:30 and then lunch early in the morning, and, yeah,
I think that since we are, we do have some mixed-use areas, I don't know, are there any any industrial areas that do not have any residential?
Well, the industrial park,
Yeah,
that doesn't have any, but it was me that was kind of against the late night stuff. I live right next to AMPI that already has noise all night. I know that Angie, that owns the greenhouse, is right there by Master Mart, and they have noise all the time. And then to add something added on to it at that time of night, it's tough. It
I
already
can
is
assure
tough.
you, we already have an account out in Belgrade, and we do serve at night, and there is no extra.
Well, there's no residential there, though. They have that
But there is
huge
no extra
parking.
noise.
Oh, yeah, no, you wouldn't, that's true. So, that was just my thought on it.
It's not like we're serving alcohol or anything, you know?
Tarek and I have talked about getting the city a delivery truck. It sounds like an ice cream truck driving down the road, but
kitchen water coolers, love
run up
it.
to it.
We could run until midnight with the water guys, the water goes till
Bar goes until,
1,
yeah, theoretically, they could go until 2 if they
right,
wanted.
yeah. We could match those hours.
Or you could say, in a non-residential district,
It doesn't matter, yeah.
well, you could say, if they're invited by the owner of the private property, they could park on the private property and serve food to employees.
So would that be limiting our marketing situation? So it has to be a one-way thing?
I don't follow you.
So we have to be invited, so we can't approach a business.
Well, I mean,
No,
I think they'd have to give you the okay.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, they don't, I'm not saying you couldn't ask them to invite you.
Right.
Let it be known that you provide that service, I guess.
Right.
I mean, it's just a suggestion, it would be a way you could do it, but I don't know.
I think
If you made it unique only to industrial park, I mean, then you know that
Yeah.
it wouldn't be close to any residential, but then maybe other industries are gonna say, why are you giving them that option and not us? I don't know.
I think the industrial park's the only place that has nighttime other than the hospital.
Well, AMPI,
That's industrial.
But it's across the street.
they're not an industrial park, though.
That's true.
They're industrial, but they're
I
not.
think there's
industrial
only
park.
industrial there. I think, Jeff?
So AMPI and Avon Plastics would be your other two, as well as Hazel Farmers Union. They're not in industrial park, but they're also industrial.
Yeah.
So if you change the language to include all businesses in industrial park, you're saying everything north of Minnie Street in the loop. That takes away everything on Minnie Street and everything including Farmers Union, Avon, and EMPI. So nobody else along Minnie Street's going to be able to do that either. So Sparing Well, they invited them in for if they have a third shift, they would not be able to do it. So you either have to figure out if you want just industrial park or industrial zone properties.
I think it makes sense to change 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. because wouldn't it be fun someday if somebody opened a brew pub here in town? And then I'd like to have a food truck sitting over there.
Then you better make it till 3, because they're open till 2.
They have to shut down by
I don't know, it seems like the cleanest way to do it, and I'm going to talk about my concern with Katie's suggestion in a minute on requesting by businesses. But I don't want to carve out too many exemptions and then just make the entire thing unenforceable. So I think the cleanest way would just say 2 a.m. in non-residential areas. Realistically, there's not going to be enough business to drive it in an area of town where there's not a business that's already operating and creating noise. That's the cleanest way for me, is just change paragraph 8 there to say 2 a.m. instead of 10 p.m.
Sean, one thing that I want to bring up is that when I lived in the cities and worked third shift, some of these food trucks that came in at our lunchtime was a lifesaver. Because there's times where you just don't have time to get it. And, you know, there was two or three different companies having different types of food trucks. And they were only there for 10 minutes. You miss the food truck, you're out. So that's why I'm saying that, you know, if it would go towards, to be more conducive with the times of, say, Lewis Industries was to allow people to have their half-hour lunch break. Because having it till 2 a.m. isn't going to do them any good.
They only have 4 people at night.
Okay, I didn't know that.
They can talk to their
But
boss.
that's what I'm getting towards.
Yeah.
I think we leave it at 2 for now, knowing that if there's a demand for something like that, we'll gladly revisit it.
We can change
But
it.
we're still doing the residential.
8.
8.
Okay.
Katie had suggested that a business could request a food truck to come. And I get the purpose behind that. My concern goes to, if we create too many exemptions, we might as well just not have an ordinance in the first place. I do think it makes sense to look at saying the 150 feet doesn't apply if the restaurant is closed.
That makes sense to me. I mean, if they're closed,
You're not taking
it
any
shouldn't be an
business.
issue.
My other question about that was that I don't believe, well, it wouldn't seem to me, based on the definition of brick and mortar restaurant, that Jumpstart Nutrition would apply.
No, they don't.
So, and I was gonna get out and try to pace it out, but I didn't have time. I think there are places with the farmer's market where it is 150 feet away from the front door of all other restaurants, I think. I didn't have time to check it
Well,
out.
the farmer's market doesn't apply either.
No, I mean, if the farmer's market wanted to have food trucks, which is what Katie brought up.
I don't see Dick going without.
It was just something that people had brought up, so I don't think, I think it's outside the 150 from any,
Don't they apply to close the street for the farmer's market anyway?
No, not anymore. They just park along the side.
Well, maybe if they want to do food trucks, maybe they should apply to close the street.
Well,
Maybe
would
they
have
should.
to. Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is the 150 feet, would have from Doris's main entrance on Jean Street. That's her address.
yes.
Right.
Which is a closer door than probably
The side.
the side door,
Yeah.
Right.
Augusta. That food truck would be the closest to AMPI, street closure. They'd have to park near the end
Mhm.
to make it, and that would be, I don't know, how far is half a block? How many feet?
150?
So that'd be, if you about right at that.
You can't block the alley. It's the alley going.
With your measuring tape.
Yeah, I think-
It's at least 150 towards the end of Augusta there.
So that's where that food truck would have to be parked.
Yeah.
Okay, they're parked, yeah.
Yep, part of an event.
I have a question. The 150 feet don't apply if the restaurant is closed. Restaurant, maybe we should probably think about putting kitchen in there, because bars still do serve pizza after their kitchen closes, and I can see someone saying, oh, I'm still serving food. Yeah, but your restaurant is closed, your bar is still open.
Well, I think that most people brought it up as like a Sunday or a day when it wouldn't be open at all. I think it, by definition, it would have to be when the restaurant itself is closed.
We said it had to be their main business had to be food, not a bar. It's their main business
Okay.
Yeah.
is a restaurant.
And
So then it wouldn't apply to Queen Bee's?
No, it would, because her business is food.
You think her main business is food?
I think so.
Okay.
Well, it's kind of 50, if she had to give you the numbers, yeah.
I'm not buying it, but okay.
Does the
So that's on the day. and the
One more question,
Yeah, you
even
gotta
if her
call it good.
kitchen is,
Okay.
even if her kitchen is closed and the bar is still open, that doesn't apply?
I think it would, we don't have the language in front of us. I would support language that says if the business is closed, you can be within 150 feet. I don't know that I would support language that gets into whether or not the kitchen is open or not. Because again, how is that going to be monitored, tracked, enforced?
Which brings me to another question, what if I have problems with someone saying I was closer than I should have been, but they brought it up after I left, how do I prove where I was?
Tough.
Tough, that's their problem.
It's their
Call down.
So, Katie, you had a quick question?
Yeah, so if I plan an event that is, say, a month out, and Queen Bee's is normally closed, but then I invite a bunch of food trucks, and then Queen Bee's decides that they're open on that day, then all those food trucks have to leave? Just theoretical, like, worst case scenario, because then they're not quote unquote closed.
You'll know a month ahead of time if she's gonna be open. She would advertise it and let everybody know she's gonna be there on Sunday.
Let's see.
I betcha.
I think we've been on this now for going on an hour. I think we've talked about all of the concerns that were raised, just looking through my notes. So we talked about going until 2 a.m., not differentiating between industrial or anything like that. It's just gonna be a flat 2 in non-residential areas. We talked about adding in some language that says if a business is closed. My vote, 1 of 5, would be don't differentiate between kitchen and rest of the business, but.
Well, I agree there.
Okay.
Who's gonna,
Too hard
I
to.
mean, a kitchen could close one night at 9, and the next night at 10, depending on the crowd.
Right.
No.
And so could the bar theoretically close early too if no one's there, and then drive the truck home and
Sometimes it
open
does.
the shop. Bill's gonna look into the Department of Health stuff for us. We'll get a clarification on that, and then we're adjusting insurance. We talked about clarifying the language for the car lights. I think we've touched on all of the concerns that were raised tonight. Anyone?
I do have one more.
Jennifer has one. Okay.
I'll defer to Neil, we might be thinking about the same thing.
Okay.
We talked about like the farmers market, and they run every week for all summer. So if you were there every week, you're gonna be over your allotted, you know what I'm saying?
I think it'd be okay, because they'd be non-residential, so they'd get 21 days
Right.
for the 5 weeks a month. I mean, they'd be pushing it.
But they're not a food truck, there's no,
No, if a food truck wanted to go,
Oh, if they
that
wanted
was
to
a
have
question that was raised by
well,
some
they're,
people.
I doubt if it'd be there from May to September.
Mhm.
They don't have anybody there hardly. May.
But I mean, the 21-day stipulation applies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right, so we have some changes to be made. Jennifer, you had it, sorry.
Well, we just haven't discussed, the cost, the fees, and I'd like a little feedback on the application, because that is extremely draft. So, I do not want to make it burdensome for an applicant, nor burdensome to process, so when we bring it back for formal approval, I think I would like to approve the application at the same time.
My only thoughts were, from talking to Brian about the revised ordinance, the fees, 50, 75, 150 would be more in line with cities our size. And then on the application generally, I thought, do we need a social security number or a tax ID? Is that really our?
I pulled it maybe from Wilmer or Buffalo or Alec, one of the cities that we took all the other information
Yep.
from. They just had it on there, and if we don't need it, we don't need it, I just put it on.
I think legal name is enough.
Okay, I'll cross that.
Yeah, I never had to provide a social.
Perfect.
So the fees, 50, 100, 200 is all
No,
right.
50, 75, and 100.
Well, the, the other night, we came up with a 50, 100, 200. On this
I thought we decided on 100.
sheet that's already on the sheet here. Well, I wrote it in my notes, it's 50, 100, 200. We were a lot lower per recommendation from finance.
Yeah.
But Brian, you thought,
Yeah, some of those were a little high, and single day is whatever. I mean, most of the cities this size for a single day are around 50. And then annual is anywhere from 100 to 150. I think the most we pay for an annual in a city is Baxter, and they just dropped theirs down to 200.
well, the discussion came up. Our administration, when you add up wages and benefits, it's well over $50 an hour. And to get the information, complete the form, you're gonna have well over an hour involved. So that's kind of where we,
Yep, and that's, I just saying what we pay.
I mean, I can live with 175 for the annual, and 50, we're already out. What was the second one?
50, 75, and 150.
75.
But I guess I wouldn't see the differential, because when you're doing a 1 day versus a annual, then at that point, it's just do one fee, because it shouldn't take any longer to apply for a single day as it does an annual.
Right, that's what I said. It's the same
Other
with
than-
employee time.
You know. So I think you just have to accept that on some of them, you're gonna take a loss, because you can't expect to get covered on a single day.
I think 50, 75, and 150 is reasonable,
I do too.
given community numbers.
Sure. Yep.
I'm hearing, if not a total agreement, at least a majority on that. Okay. And then any other thoughts on the application generally, from anyone?
No, I thought it was good.
Yeah. I'm good with it. I just thought get rid of the social security number. I don't think we need to be tracking that anyway.
Under application must include, you're gonna, when Bill gets back to us, we'll figure out which Stearns County or state or. and
Yeah,
maybe
Department of
that
Health
needs
might
to be
need to be
worded.
changed. Yep, we'll figure that out.
I think that's it for tonight.
Okay. All right, we'll bring that one back then at our next meeting with those changes and approve it then. So, thank you everyone, I appreciate the dialogue. Feel free to stick around, we've got a couple things left on the agenda, but
One.
one thing. No, we've got
But don't feel you have to.
All right, so moving on then to old business, letter B, the hiring of part-time officers. We have a number of recommended motions on here. Everything is included. I had a nice conversation with the sheriff. We talked about scheduling a meeting, but his schedule, along with ours, just wasn't going to be possible. So he sent out this letter going through the terms and pricing. I guess my thought based on the letter is we take exactly what Chief was recommending at our last meeting and look at a hybrid model where we hire some part-timers and if we need to fill in from time to time as a contract, then we have to do that. The biggest reason why I'm suggesting the hybrid model as opposed to just a strict contract to fill in talking to the sheriff, and he reiterates it in his letter here, they just don't know that they've got the staffing to do a full contract commitment at this time.
Yeah.
If we had to do it later in the year, he thought we could, but as of right now, they just don't have the staff on hand. So for that reason, I think it's best if we move forward with the part-time and contract as an option if we can't get somebody to fill it in. So the motions on the action sheet, if we wanted to go with those, would be to approve the creation of a temporary police officer pool and allow the appointment of officers as necessary, the hiring of the 3 officers listed there as part-time, and then a motion to authorize or approve a contract between the city and Stearns County with secondary employment. And then I would suggest a 4th motion to, I guess, utilize scenario number 3 as for contracting on an as-needed basis with the county.
I have a comment for you, Sean.
Yeah.
On the motion to approve the creation of a temporary police officer pool to assist with staff shortages, would it be beneficial to ask former police officers if they would want to join this pool, as they would know the area and need less training?
Yeah, so
That's what-
Carter
I need to put
is,
you on the spot there, Dallin, but,
no, Carter is a former officer, so the chief's already been doing that.
He's been doing that.
okay.
Yeah, so Carter knows the area, the other two, Adrian does not, but Chad's a Stearns County deputy, so
Okay.
he knows the area as well. So,
I was just thinking about putting this into the pool, just as an option, which it looks like Chief's already doing it.
yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve the creation of a temporary police officer pool to assist with staff shortages and to allow the city administrator to appoint officers to the pool as necessary.
Second.
I have a motion by Soini, seconded by Hertzberg, to approve the creation of a temporary officer pool to assist with staff shortages and to allow the city admin to appoint officers to the pool as necessary. On that motion, is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries. Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the hiring of the officers listed?
So moved.
I have a motion by Brooke, do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Soini to approve the hiring of Carter Lynch, Adrian Lammers, and Chuck Meemkin as temporary part-time officers to assist with staffing shortages and to start them at a wage appropriate for the amount of experience they have, no less than step 5. Any further discussion on that? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries.
Sean, just for bookkeeping, is that going to be on the part-time scale or the full-time scale?
I think it's gonna have to be on the part-time scale.
So that's a 75% full-time scale employee wage. And I didn't know what that's for the very part-timers, like the seasonal and the 14 below.
Then it's gonna have to be full-time but no benefits.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So, can we just make a motion to that effect to clarify that? That the part-time officers are going to be hired on the, according to the full-time wage scale or the part-time wage scale, whatever we resolve?
Yes. Since I made the motion to begin with, can I,
What's your motion?
oh gosh, what you just said.
The hiring.
Yes,
On the full-time scale.
yes.
Second.
I have a motion by Brick, seconded by Thielen, to hire the officers according to the full-time wage scale, even though they're doing part-time work. Any further discussion on that?
How does that compare, how are our part-timers being paid right now?
Well, as an example, the liquor store, if they're under 14
No,
hours a
no,
week,
please,
the 3 part-timers you have now, they're on the full-time scale.
okay. Because we have to be,
Consistent.
and that sets a precedent, so, that we already got it, there we are.
Perfect.
Yep.
Okay, any further discussion then? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. That carries. Or any opposed? No, that carries. And we'd be looking at the secondary employment agreement, which is the one listed on page 33.
I'll make the motion to approve the contract between the City of Painesville and the Stearns County Sheriff's Department authorizing deputies to work for the city as secondary employment.
Second.
I have a motion by Soini, seconded by Hertzberg, to approve the contract agreement between the city and Stearns County Sheriff's Department authorizing deputies to work for the city as secondary employment. Any further discussion on this?
We should clarify which letter it is from the sheriff, because we have one here dated February 15th and one that was stamped on March the latest.
Yeah, it's
We'll
going to be
get a
page
contract.
33.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's the one on page 33, the February 15.
okay.
All right. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None? That carries. Right, then do we want to do a motion regarding the hybrid model or anything else for contracting?
You mean which scenario?
Scenario number 3. Yeah, but theoretically, we're not bound
I was
to
going to say,
anything.
we're kind of doing that already by having the,
Well, so the letter agreement is only one, so that thing on page 33, just authorizes the deputies to work for secondary employment. So like if Cody wanted to go get a job as a part-time officer with Belgrade, we'd have to authorize that. So the sheriff is authorizing his deputies to come work for the city as part-time. They're going to use their duty equipment, but we have to replace it if anything happens while they're working.
Right.
That doesn't cover contracted rates for them coming out here on their dime, so in their cars, their things like that. The one that we just did just talks about them using our stuff. So I think
Basically contracting then for them to fill some of our hours.
Right, so
They'll
this-
send somebody.
Yeah, so the scenario number 3 would be, we'll
Yeah.
get the part-time applicant pool, but, maybe take, like, if there's a busy weekend and everyone's just on vacation and we can't get anyone to fill in, then we'd want to call the county and say, we need you out here from these hours on this day. And that's the scenario 3 in the sheriff's letter. And the benefit to that is that if we're contracting with them, they have a car in town to respond to anything that comes up, as opposed to them being maybe up in Sauk Center and driving down,
Right.
at whatever speed they want to when a call comes in. They're here, unless they get pulled up. I mean, we could say, just forget it, knowing that the county's always going to respond if no one's on duty here, but I think it makes sense to have that option.
I agree. I'll make that motion to do a hybrid model of part-time officers in Stearns County Sheriff's contracted hours.
Okay, I have a motion by Soini for scenario number 3, the hybrid model. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Hertzberg. Any discussion on that? None. All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? None. That carries. All right, that concludes our business for the night. Informational, we have our investment and financial reports that Belinda finished today. Our city attorney report, all on the city's website. Police department report